So at the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit, it's important for us to hear from people like Jerry, right? Because Jerry, no bullshit, tells it like it is and gives us tools and he gives us insights. It's also important for us to talk to entrepreneurs, people who are living this stuff day in and day out, so that they can share what's working, what's not working, where have we been, where are we going, where are we going. And so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna hear from three amazing entrepreneurs.
Our drinks are very far away.
And we are going to get deep into the idea of doing business differently. Gail's gonna moderate the panel, and she's gonna have everyone introduce themselves real quick. So let's give a hand to the panel and kick off.
So this is gonna be super interactive. If you're really charged up to ask something, don't wait. You just wiggle in your seat like a kindergartner and show me you're interested, and we'll see if we can get you up here to ask the question. Sound good? All right. So really what I want to start with is I would love each of these incredible lady bosses to introduce themselves and tell you kind of the essence of who they are and what they do. So we'll start with Myka.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. My name is Myka McLaughlin, and so my background is economics, and when I was a teenager, I had a very interesting experience of coming from a blue-collar background, but being exposed to the global elite of very high wealth and the developing world at the same time. So I became really interested in the disparity of wealth that exists in our time. So 12 years ago, I, long story short, developed a hunch that helping women build businesses could help solve for economic development in low-income communities. And so we developed a system for helping women build profitable businesses, and that's what we've been doing for 11 years.
Cool.
Am I on? I am.
You are on.
Oh, good. Hi, I'm Makisha, and let's see, what do? I do a lot of things. I help Black women break generational curses. I help them build their legacy through entrepreneurship. I help them come together and work together to build community wealth. And I do that through my incubator and accelerator, SistahBiz.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. My name is Lopa Mersch, and I help people energize in a sustainable way. I'm helping to pioneer a regenerative business model, not just in terms of what we do in our supply chain with herbs, but also the product and how it is helping people to regenerate their own energy and relate to their body as the soil. Because the conventional agricultural method is how much can I extract, right? And we're doing that with our own bodies all the time. Like, how much more productivity can I suck out of my system? As opposed to thinking about the long haul and how much more can I put back in so that the quality of what I'm putting out is in alignment with my true self. So we do that through coffee alternatives and also how we run our business as much as possible.
Awesome. So I kind of want to turn it over to you ladies. I'd love to start, Makisha, with you and just say, hey, if someone was to ask you how you are doing business differently, what does that mean to you?
It means that I'm trying every day to decolonize the way that I run my own organization, to be a model for mainstream organizations for what decolonization looks like. It looks like me redefining success. So really thinking about success beyond what most entrepreneurs are taught to believe is the ultimate success, which is wealth building and revenue generating, but thinking about it from a state of like, are we well? And so are my employees well? Are the clients I serve well? Because I was just telling Kayla is in our network, in our community, and we were just talking, and I was thinking about the fact that we define success as all these things that we run after, money and everything else, and nobody's really happy. And we don't make that a part of the thing we're chasing the same way that we do other things. And so wellness, happiness, redefining success, and then harmony, restoring harmony, not extracting, not exploiting, trying to do my part to contribute to there being harmony. I don't want to say balance. Somebody was talking about the difference between balance and harmony recently, and I love that idea of focusing more on harmony and realizing the ways in which I may contribute to lack of harmony in our world, and trying to do a better job about doing business in a way that creates more harmony in the world.
That reminds me of what Jerry said earlier, right? When he was talking about what am I doing, how am I contributing, how am I complicit, right, in the things that I don't like or don't want to see, right? And I love that idea of harmony. I think that that's a brilliant way to look at it. Balance seems at times impossible, and harmony feels a lot more achievable and attainable. Yeah. How about you, Lopa? How are you doing business differently?
A lot of ways. I would say my creative director, last week we were doing this big brand meeting and stuff, and he wrote on it, on this little sticky note and passed it over to me. It said, "Rasa is the humble iconoclast." And I was like, fuck yeah. Can I swear here? Sorry. So
Yes,
one of
you
the
can
things we do is swear. That's one way we're doing business differently. Fundamentally, I think mindset is a really important way that I'm approaching. It all starts there because that's where creation happens. It starts in your ideas and then it flows out into action. And so how you're thinking about the world and what you're doing in business and how you're defining success trickles down. Like that's the real trickle down economics, is through your energy. And so fundamentally, I would say that we are questioning so many of the status quos. And this conference is a great example too, because it's like, how is this conference doing business differently? Like there's a lot of things that people expect. I will say I have never spoken at a conference where everybody's paying so much attention right now. And that is brilliant. That's amazing. Like that's like coming up against those givens that we think are givens. And one of the systems that we all exist within is capitalism. And so I'm constantly saying, like, how can we do capitalism better? Because that system, and exactly what you're talking about, Makisha, and how we're all like running with our heads cut off, and just like, or we're walking heads, with our bodies cut off. That's probably more realistic. And nobody's actually really happy, and we're all going towards some idea of success. How can we be rethinking the actual system and working differently within that system so that we're still successful within that system too? And so some of the ways, that's all high in the sky stuff, and then there's a lot of ways that shows up in reality. And it's important to have that high in the sky stuff too, and then also have like, how does that actually show up? So things like flexible schedules, things like, actually treating our people like humans who have whole systems, doing wellness moments at the beginning of our meetings. So we always take about 5 minutes to just drop in together. Somebody different will lead it every time. We're very transparent across the organization, so everybody knows what's going on in the leadership team meetings. We report that out every week so that everybody just has a sense of it's not just top-down decision-making that's affecting and happening to them. Let's see, a lot of other little things that come out to create something that ends up looking a lot different and is created for humans existing in this system, and rethinking what that looks like when we're actually successful.
I like that. And I did you hear her talk about mindset at the very beginning? I feel like that's kind of a theme today, is the idea of your brain and the power that it has to get in your way or to help you succeed. And that takes effort, and sometimes that effort seems harder than the other stuff, right? The busy stuff that gets us feeling like we're doing something, but we're really spinning our wheels. So I appreciated hearing that. Myka, how about you? How are you doing business differently?
Well, I actually really have loved this question, and once we settled on it as the panel topic, it has sort of been, I've been ruminating on it. One of the things that I noticed that kind of surprised me is that a bunch of ways that I felt like we were doing business differently was really different 10 years ago when we started, and is not that different today, which is a sign of actually how fast our business world is changing. So, for example, 10 years ago, we were developing a rigorous system for building profitable businesses, but we were doing it at the intersection of a culture that included a lot of emotional considerations and even a spiritual practice. And the intersection of business and spirituality 10 years ago pretty much didn't exist. In fact, when we came to market, we basically let it be known, but also kept it like under our skirts until you got inside of working with us, and then it came out full force. Our customers raved about this. It was like they had been dying of thirst their whole lives until this intersection came to bear. But now, 10 years later, it's still an innovative aspect of doing business differently, and there's clearly a lot of reasons that we benefit from a secular business culture as well. So it's complex. And we're here at the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit as an example of how many people are saying, hey, I don't want these parts of my life compartmentalized. And just, to your point, looking at harmony and both of your points, like how we're all starting to look at businesses, how do we allow our business lives to let us thrive as human animals, not just as robots? I could go on, but that's there for now.
I love that insight. It's great. And one of the things you said that sparked me is, and you probably have seen this in your own world. I think when we get these buzzwords, we start to see other companies jump on board and use them as well. Like, oh, we're an emotionally intelligent company, right? And because they see the success that companies who are kind of digging in and doing some of that heavy lifting in the areas that need to happen, right? They realize that they need to be doing that too, and they're not necessarily doing it, right? So being authentic to what you're trying to put out there and how you're trying to put it out there is kind of a really, really important thing, especially as an entrepreneur when people are influencing you all the time and telling you, don't do that or do that. So just kind of centering and knowing that that's where you need to be is awesome. So another thing I kind of wanted to bring up, which I think is, because we all had to do business differently during COVID. And I was actually sharing with Lisa, who I'm not sure is here earlier, that my business, the business I'm in, we exploded when COVID happened. I thought it was gonna be great, and we were gonna be really needed to be innovative and help people, move through it. And we had to send back all of our deposits and retainers and had no money. And I crawled into a big old depression hole and was like, I'm never coming out, and it's never gonna be the same. And so I'm curious for all of you, what positive thing for you came out of COVID with your business? What was good that was happening, or that was a byproduct? Let's start with Lopa.
Well, our business also doubled in COVID. So COVID was generous to the e-commerce focused companies like myself, like ours. But I would say the biggest and best thing that came out of the business is that there was so much going on in the outside world, and it was fucked. I mean, we were all just, hanging on by our fingernails in so many different ways. But I got so many times that my employees would say that Rasa was their happy place, that coming to work actually felt like a vacation from the rest of the insanity of life. And what we were able to create there by having a space that was safe for all of them to show up, having check-ins at the beginning of our calls just to see where are people at, being sensitive to what was going on in the outside world and saying, hey, something big just happened, let's pause what we were doing and just account for that. And all of these different things, allowing people to cry and to, just bring their whole selves to work, with healthy boundaries as well. And we learned we went too far in one direction at some points, whereas like, bring your whole self to work, maybe with a little bit more professionalism. So there is a balance, there is a line. Not many companies go too far in that direction. We definitely did, and happy to share stories about that. But yeah, hearing that what we had created was a bit of a safe, happy bubble for our team, and that how many of our customers were also said that our product helped them get through these hard times, and we got all sorts of life stories of people, what was going on. And so it was just that reminder that when you're doing something that's really aligned with who you are, and that you're living in alignment with your values and executing in alignment with those values, the impact can actually really, even if it's just a 1% difference in somebody's life, like, how does that affect their children? How does that affect their parents and their spouses and all of the people that are in their community?
I actually really appreciated you saying when something big happened, you called it out. I can't tell you the number of organizations I've worked in personally where some major global thing happened, or even something local within our own community, and it was as if we were to just move past it and pretend we didn't have feelings about it. And kind of to Jerry's point earlier, it's like how he was feeling. He had to acknowledge and validate his own feelings about that before he could be present and be authentic with you. And I think that's a way of doing business differently, for sure, is to be able to create that space. So that's awesome. How about you, Myka?
Yeah, so I think we were really lucky during COVID. We just had a lot of privilege in terms of we were already an online business, we were already a remote team, so we didn't have a lot of impact in our day-to-day. But one of the things that we do differently, or at least that we do very specifically, is we build in a huge amount of financial management into our day-to-day business operations, both at the business level and at the personal level. So we grow the financial security and the wealth of our company and our team's personal lives every single month. That does not happen by making more money. That happens by managing the money that you have better and well, consistently. So when COVID hit, we had 6 months of cash in the bank so that we could face the uncertainty that was to come. All of our team had learned from myself and my business partner about how to manage their personal money. So all of us on our team had a lot of resilience financially. And so we all got to be really relaxed. We were scared. We didn't know how bad it was going to be. We were really impacted by what everyone was experiencing that we know and care about, or don't even know but care about. And yet for us, we got to show up for our community. We got to stay consistent in all of our spending at a business and personal level, so we were part of stabilizing the economy in that moment. And so I just can't recommend enough remembering that we just because we make more money does not mean we have more security or that our net worth is growing.
Oh, thank you. Makisha, how about you? What good for you came out of COVID?
So you just straight triggered me with all kinds of PTSD asking that question. But
I understand.
but God helped me answer this question. It was COVID for me, what I saw was the entire globe shut down, become quiet, and ready for George Floyd. It's the greatest period civil rights movement of my time that was amplified and finally heard. Black men have been being killed since well before I was born, in different forms, in different ways, every day. Every day. What you saw on that TV, it happens all the time. So I am convinced that the reason why this time mattered so much is because we got to sit down and feel it and acknowledge it and not run from it and deal with it and recognize our individual and our collective contribution to it and decide we wanted to do something about it. And so for me, there was nothing greater for me than that from COVID.
Yeah, I can say from my white privilege that it absolutely had that impact on me. I could cry. I fully felt it. And I felt my own implicit bias through all of that. And I got, irritated that I thought I was an ally, but I was completely lazy and in inaction, right? So that is a powerful revelation, and it's not until you said that I realized that happened, right? And it happened for me for sure. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to throw kind of a little monkey wrench into this because it made me think of it. I think, I'm making a huge assumption, I think we all identify as women. I know that's a huge assumption, so if I'm wrong, please tell me. As a female lady boss, what would you say to people, specifically, I'm gonna say men, who want to be a good advocate for you when you're in a situation where you're not shown respect? I hope that makes sense. And I'll give you an example. My husband and I will go on meetings with potential clients, and it also happens with women as well. And the client, I'll ask a question and the client will look at my husband and speak to my husband. And then he will politely look at me and bring the focus back to me because he doesn't know any other way to do it. And it happens with women as well, right? I've been in situations where I'm talking to VP of HR and she'll do the same thing. And I feel unseen, quite frankly. So that's kind of where I was going. What would you tell, someone who wants to be a good advocate for you when you're in a situation and you're getting kind of the gender bias? I'm going to leave it to you, whoever wants to speak up.
I'll say first and foremost, I'm really grateful that it seems like it's happening less and less over time. As you were saying, like, things have changed a lot in the last decade. And I'm a pretty strong personality, so I think it happens a little bit less to me. And yet, can't tell you how many times I've been on an investor call and it's like 4 dudes and me and they're all talking over me and I'm the one pitching, So I think from my experience, voice is really important in any circumstance when someone is marginalized. And so first being aware of the privilege and the power that you have, whatever the stack of those might be, and then ensuring that that there is a share of voice across everybody in the room. And so a very simple, what does Lopa think about that? Or I'd love to hear from this person, is so powerful and so easy. It does not take any work. So, whether it's for women, whether it's for people of color, whether it's for whomever, just ensuring that you're hearing that voice in every conversation where those people are present is a really powerful way to support.
I can go. So I will say what you said they do to your husband, I've had that happen with my white staff. So I'll be at an event or somewhere where I'm managing and they'll bypass me and go to my staff that is not black and say, can we get approval for this, or where do you want this, or how do you want, and they're like, she's right there. So it happens to marginalize, peoples in a number of ways. So I get it. And I would say 2 ways in which I would recommend: when the person is present and when the person is not. Because the truth of the matter is we're not at a lot of the tables that we should be at. And so be courageous. It takes courage. You are going to get attacked. You are going to have people not like you. You may have your job or your position or your influence threatened. And if you're really trying to do this work, that's what it looks like. It's courage. I've gotten blacklisted before. I've gotten moved out of contracts before because I spoke up. And so be that person that speaks up for someone else, so that it's no longer a thing that you have to speak up from and be the lone person speaking out on. And so when you're at a table and these situations and topics come up, be courageous and speak on behalf of those people that are being left out, those peoples that are being left out. And then when they're there, I'll just use an example. I was at a lunch meeting with funders who were interested in supporting the work I was doing, and I was the only person of color there representing SistahBiz, and one of the parties kind of railroaded and just kind of took their way with the agenda and moved forward with the discussion. And the funder, the person in power, said, can we stop? Because we're here to talk about what we're trying to do for Black women entrepreneurs. So can we hear from Makisha on the vision first, like the whole reason why we're sitting at the table? And I could have said that, but it would came out a whole lot different, and it would have been taken and received a whole lot differently than it was with a white woman sitting here advocating for me that holds the power and the checkbook. And so just use your power. Like, don't be afraid to use your power. That's why it was given to you. You're walking in your purpose when you stand up for other people, when you show up at the table and you say, not on my watch.
I like that. Yeah, absolutely. So I think I told each of you when I first met you how inspired I am by the work that you're doing, and you know, I think it's easy to celebrate all our successes, and I'm a pretty big fan of success doesn't come without failure, right? Doesn't come without missteps, and it's all in how you pick yourself back up, right, and what you do. So I would love to hear from you about what experience did you have when you had either a fail or an epic fail, and what did you do to kind of get yourself through that, or what helped you through that? We'll start with you, Myka.
Which one shall I pick? I think one of the most vulnerable things I could say to this question is this business was the first complex business that I started, and I bootstrapped it. And I was early to the market with a lot of innovation and at the beginning of something. But I had a lot to learn, actually, about building a business. And I did not know how to capture the opportunity that I was sitting on. And that's just the case. And over 10 years, we've built a successful business, and we've made a lot of impact. But there were probably times when I really needed to seek investment, and I didn't. Or I really needed to make a big leap and put a lot of money on my credit card in order to grow, and I played it safe, and we stayed small. And whether that's a failure, I'm not sure, but because our culture is so focused on what's big, I think there is something that we each need to come to terms with for ourselves around what happens when we build something solid, but nobody knows your name. What happens when you build something great and you didn't get the accolades for it, right? And so it's been an interesting journey to sit with that over time and to come to terms with it for myself. And it's been fruitful.
So many to choose from. And as I was scanning over some of them, I realized that they all ladder up to mindset. It all actually starts with me. I am the common denominator in my mistakes. So the criticalness of cultivating self-awareness so that you, and also having outside input, mentors, friends that you really trust, the kind of friends who will tell you when you're fucking up and standing in your own way, not just the ones who are like, you're amazing, you're amazing. That is absolutely critical. In terms of actual, what that has looked like, I ran myself into the ground in the pursuit of something bigger, and did not, I was espousing a bunch of values for our customers that I was absolutely not living for myself, and crashed and burned pretty hard a number of times into some pretty significant burnout. And my favorite moment of that was, I was already teetering on the edge for a while, burnout-wise, and then jealousy sparked, and I don't generally relate to myself as a particularly jealous person, but one of our competitors has raised a lot more money than us, and I happened to see their benefits package they were hiring, and I was like, oh, let me see what they're oh my God, we're not doing anything like this. They get like a free Aura ring and they get to fly anywhere in the world. It's like Silicon Valley level shit, you know? And I went into like a 2-month meltdown because it was the burnout catalyzed with like, I'm so not as successful as that. And I was so focused on where I wasn't, that I wasn't actually celebrating where I was, and the fact that we had employees who were like, Rasa is my happy place during COVID, and the fact that, you know, we're changing people's lives in a very meaningful way. And so, you know, there was a mindset piece. Like, I was keeping myself small because I was focusing on where we weren't, instead of just like celebrating the size that we were, smaller, not as fancy of benefits, but still pretty great. And then I like was completely burned out in that whole process as well. And so that was a process of, to get out of that was a slow one step in front of the other. Fundamentally, first and foremost, remembering why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that I am a very critical asset to this business's success. And so I can't forget myself. I can't leave myself in that process of growth.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head with something I'm sure many of us have felt before, which is the trap of comparison, right? And what everyone
It's
else
the
is
worst
doing.
in entrepreneurship. It's not, it like doesn't come out in the rest of my life, but somehow in this.
No, and I am guilty of it. And I'm especially guilty of it when I see press releases or some kind of social media something, and I'm like, why am I not doing that? And it's only when I, you know, like stop and collect yourself and, you know, just center and realize what you're doing and how you're doing it, and you are not them. You are not them, right? So that was very insightful. I think that we can all, some of us maybe all of us, who can relate to comparing yourself with other organizations that maybe do what you do? Thanks, I needed that validation. Thanks, guys. Makisha, how about you?
I fell all the time. My very first business was a day spa in Cherry Creek and then in the Golden Triangle, and I failed terribly at it. I got fired from a 6-figure job that I really loved. This year, SistahBiz lost its biggest contract and funder. Like, I felt all the time. I don't think that's really where my focus is. My focus is on, like, I want to get better at how I feel and how quick I rebound. Yes. And I don't mean rebound like I'm ready to go back at it and do the thing again. I think that's important too. But I think how quickly do I get centered? How quickly do I remember, oh, you was trying to show me something and I wasn't listening, but now I'm paying attention, so tell me again, I'm listening now. Like, how quick do I get centered again? How quickly and how deeply am I willing to accept my role in whatever I'm experiencing so that I can become a better person? It takes some time sometimes. Sometimes I resist that. Sometimes I fight it. Sometimes I run like hell from it. And that's not the way I want to fail. And so I think it's less about the failures. They happen all the time. But how can I grow from them and model for my son and for others around me how to love myself, forgive myself, and love and forgive others that are a part of the story.
Yeah, I like to think of it as celebrating failure, actually. And that's something we teach our clients. And there are companies that have failure walls. Maybe you've heard of some of them. And it's great because you think about someone like Dyson, the company Dyson, when there were, there's like 7,000 iterations of that vacuum before it came out. I would have stopped it 4, maybe. I think I would have been like, oh, it's obviously not in the cards for me. So it's what happened, what did I learn, and I love your idea of what is the speed at which I am reminded to get clear and present and centered again. And I think that's a big, big lesson, and I love that.
And I just want to call out, I almost like cringed at using the word speed, because again, it's really not a race. It's not about the speed in terms of speed. It's about why am I not going faster? Is it because of resistance? So it's more about the resistance and the unwillingness to open myself, but even that time, to even give myself that time that I need to process and get there.
Awesome. So I have a question about if you could go back in time and you could tell yourself a piece of advice that might help you along the way, what would you tell your younger self, your younger entrepreneurial self, as you were getting going? What would be your advice?
Don't start a business when you have 2 young children.
Well, you wouldn't be here, right?
That is
At this
correct.
moment.
Okay, I started that with a joke, and now I have to follow it up with something real, don't I? I think going back to my failure, I would say that it's not worth it to forget yourself in the process. It's actually not going to result in the results that you want and get the support that you need. And going back to a mindset issue from before, I was not hiring the right people somewhat consciously because I was like, well, let's get cheaper people because money. And the reality is I probably would have gotten a lot further with fewer, more expensive people who just knew more than I did because I was totally green to this. So get support, get resourced, network. All these things that I felt like I didn't have time for, I think actually would have cut the amount of time that it took to do what I was doing and would have given me a bit more space and also more nourishment and more reflection. It's helpful to have that validation of, hey, you're doing a good thing, you know, like keep going and turn left instead of right there because you're about to crash.
Awesome.
I think what my younger self didn't fully understand is how much this is about just continuing to go for what you love. And it's that simple. Either you live a life doing the thing that you love, or you live a life wishing that you were doing the things that you love. And it takes so much courage to keep asking, like, where am I really drawn right now? Instead of what I thought I was drawn to a year ago or 10 years ago, but what's actually true right now. And sometimes what was actually true is I was just tired and I needed to rest. But lo and behold, following that impulse is actually where I got the replenishment in order to keep going. And so all along the way, it's been this series of learning the power of just going toward what I am attracted to, even when it's scary, even when it seems like it's not going to work, even when everybody tells you it's not going to work. Just follow what you're attracted to and keep going. And it's amazing what we can build with just pure perseverance plus the passion in our heart.
Amen.
So in line with Lopa, I'm going to tell a little joke first and then lead off with the serious thing. I would tell myself, how about you not try to open a day spa with just $5,000 in startup capital? How about that? But then it got me where I am today. So, you know, things happened and you learn. I think for me, I would be like, girl, get a glass of wine because I'm about to give you all the tea. And just let you know that everything is going to be okay. Everything's going to be just fine.
I love that. I often think about going back in time and what I might say, and it's pretty much along the same lines, right? Self-care, right? It's all going to be all right. I like the wine part too. Just saying. You know, that idea that that you could go back in time and change things, that was an interesting one, because I'm a real big fan of every decision and every turn and every tangle has led us to this moment right now, here where we are, right? And so I try to kind of embrace that as best I can and not think about going back. I still think it's helpful though, because there's people that are here that are probably just starting out doing something, and they need to hear those things, right? They need to remember that they need to hear those things. So, all right. So I have a couple other questions. I'd really like to go to the audience though and see if anyone has some questions for these lovely ladies. Yes. Do we have we probably don't have another microphone.
I could just ask.
Okay.
Lopa, one question for you and then one for everybody. We're bring your whole self to work culture as well, but are struggling with whole self versus whole stuff and that boundary. So I'm just curious of like 2 or 3 things you did to shift that culture and hold that line between whole self and appropriate work behavior. And I don't mean appropriate in like even necessarily
we'll start with the first one then.
Our team got a little smaller, which is a tactful way of saying that some people needed to go who could not get that. But then there was also the question of what did we allow in our culture that was flourishing, that there was drama as opposed to that healthful whole self, and where is that line? And one of the things that we did was we went back to our values, and I went and took a day offline and was like, okay, where did we just fail in those values, and actually wrote paragraphs for each one that gave caveats of how this value is lived so that it also included the healthy boundary. One of our values is emotional intelligence, and when I read it at first from the lens of what had happened in the drama that ensued, I was like, oh, I can see how this happened. We wrote it in. It was like, bring your whole self, everything is great, no boundaries. And we wrote in boundaries. We wrote in, this means you're taking 100% responsibility for your own shit. This means that you are aware of your impact and how it's impacting the work culture around you, so that you're contributing to an environment of health to get, collectively. And of course, everybody has moments where they just melt down and need to melt down, and it's wonderful to allow that, but then when that keeps happening, you have to sort of know when to shore it up a bit. And then, so we shared these new paragraphs with people probably 10 times. I did a values speech numerous times in our all hands, and then we started doing, at the beginning of our all hands meetings, we do appreciations of the team, and so we call each other out for awesome things that we're doing. And we aligned those to the values. And so each week we would have a value of the week, and then it would be specifically focused on that. And the leadership team, we worked a little bit more collectively to be like, let's really pull up the values when we see these new edges of how we're living these values being exemplified. And that's become just part of how we do our all hands. And then there's one exercise that we didn't get to, but that I would highly recommend, that is Brene Brown has an operationalizing our values work process that goes through and it's like, okay, here's the value. What does that actually look like? It means, we don't gossip, or it means these things. And Kaylee is here as well. 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership is another fantastic book. We've brought in some of that work as well, in terms of how do we address the human side and the conflict side and all of that. And that 100% responsibility piece, I think, is just like rules to live by in life. It's very, very powerful.
How are we doing on time, by the way? Are we good? No, we're not good? That's a thumbs down. I'm pretty sure I saw that. So should we not answer the other question and just shuffle off to Buffalo now? That's not what it looked like.
Those mixed messages.
All right, thumbs down. So second question was, what is the cool, badass thing you're bringing now that in 10 years people are going to say, oh, we're all doing that?
I heard you asking at the intersection of spirituality and business specifically. Oh, just in general? Okay.
You were using that as an example of something you had done 10 years ago. So what is the thing that you've normalized at your businesses now that the rest of the world hasn't caught up to?
I don't know if the rest of the world will catch up to it, but one of the things that we're working with right now in the moment is that we are committed to pricing our product offering not for the customer who has the biggest ROI with us, but for the customer who often has the least. To make sure that those who don't turn the corner and get the results that we would hope for them after paying us, we can't be responsible for that fully, right? They have their own part in that, but that we are taking care of that portion of our customers by making sure that we're not charging in ways that cripple them and their families when they didn't get the results that they hoped for. And so that, intersects also with taking care of us, right? So we are in an inflationary time. We have our expenses going up across all areas. And so there's ways in which we're getting squeezed. So one of the ways that we're dealing with that right now, and we're a service-based business, so this might not translate to all of your industries and businesses, but we are looking at significantly increasing our prices, but instilling a way to make sure that we are vetting every single one of our customers to make sure that we think that they are in a position to get the best results given a higher price point, and creating offerings that are a prerequisite before, if they're not ready for that high price point investment, that we have a way for them to baby step into it without impacting them financially. And so there's just a way, I don't know what you would call it, but there's a way in which we are so on our customers' team, while at the same time not throwing ourselves under the bus, that we are always trying to innovate at that intersection.
Makisha, throw it in there quick before Alex gets the hook.
Okay, so a couple quick things. I just got to say, as a Black woman, I would like for my allies in the room to consider, when you're in a position of leadership, that bring your whole self to work thing is not often culturally competent and can be racially traumatizing. So I just want you to look into that when you're building out that strategic plan and thinking about that safe space. That discussion around safe space isn't usually safe for people of color. So talk about safe space and courageous space. What does courageous space look like? In our organization, 3 things that we try to live by, switching to the next thing, is no code switching. So that's something that our team openly talks about. We do not have to code switch. And everybody eats. So when we do business with people, we want to make sure that everybody that's in the scenario benefits. And so that's another thing. And so I would say those are the things that I think we're doing differently are not new. They are timeless. Candor, accountability, love.
Awesome. Would you join me in thanking them for their time today?